Serious, what are some of the creepiest declassified documents made available to the public? Anything involving Japan's Unit 731 during World War II. It was a military chemical and biological warfare division that experimented on powers. Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, was subjected to grueling, degrading psychological experiments while he was an underage student at Harvard. Operation Northwoods. Proposed false flag attacks against American civilians targets carried out by the CIA and blamed on Cuba in 1962. Thankfully JFK said duck no and shut that it down. The JFK assassination documents never fully being released as they keep getting pushed back. The documents themselves are creepy in the sense of how contradicting they are. But what makes it truly creepy is the full release keeps getting pushed back. Operation Lack. Biological warfare testing done on US cities. Principally, the operation involved spraying large areas with zinc cadmium sulfide, which is very toxic. Many who were affected died of cancer and the testing was never followed up on. Most of the neighborhood's genetic makeup was dug up for no reason and no apologies were made. I think there was a lot of creepy things that came out when the East German Stasi files were released after the Berlin Wall fell. All citizens were allowed to view their own files and many were shocked to find out that their own relatives were informing on them, because they had no choice, and various other things. A good movie about this is called Other People's Lives. Edit. I got the name of the movie wrong. It's The Lives of Others. Project Pluto is pretty horrific. The proposed use for nuclear-powered ramjets would be to power a cruise missile called SLAM. 4. Supersonic low-altitude missile. In order to reach ramjet speed, it would be launched from the ground by a cluster of conventional rocket boosters. Once it reached cruising altitude and was far away from populated areas, the nuclear reactor would be made critical. Since nuclear power gave it almost unlimited range, the missile could cruise in circles over the ocean until ordered down to the deck for its supersonic dash to targets in the Soviet Union. The SLAM, as proposed, would carry a payload of many nuclear weapons to be dropped on multiple targets, making the cruise missile into an unmanned bomber. After delivering all its warheads, the missile could then spend weeks flying over populated areas at low altitudes, causing tremendous ground damage with its shockwave and fallout. When it finally lost enough power to fly and crash landed, the engine would have a good chance of spewing deadly radiation for months to come. Double quote. Source. There is a list somewhere on web of the last words of inmates punished by death in Texas. MKUltra. The CIA performing illegal experiments on Americans to try to develop mind control. There's one where the CIA essentially was researching astral projection and its possible applications for espionage. Gay bomb. It was a weapon speculated by the USA in the 90s that, when dropped, would release pheromones which would make the enemy attracted to each other. Edit. Spelling. Memo from Roger Boyce Julian O-ring erosion. Months prior to the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster, he essentially predicted and forewarned that the rocket O-rings would fail if the shuttle launched in cold weather. This FBI investigation file, titled Animal Mutilation, back in the 1970s-80s, the media's attention was drawn to some anomalies taking place not only on American cattle farms, but all over the world. Cow corpses were being discovered in fields, missing organs, with surgical holes in their sides, with no blood. For a brief time, this was passed off as a strange coincidence, but eventually, the public got so worked up that the FBI commissioned an investigation. 6 months and $45,000 later, they found nothing. Nothing. No trace of a person, machine, alien, anything. Everyone was left hanging, but strangely, died down. The reports of animal mutilations have simply stacked up to since then, and to this day there have been excess of 10,000. Not really a document, but a case that the Soviet Union tried to hide for a while, the Nazino affair. Here is part of an eyewitness reported about it. More than they were trying to escape. They asked us, where's the railway? We'd never seen a railway. They asked, where's Moscow? Leningrad? They were asking the wrong people. We'd never heard of those places. We're Astyaks. People were running away starving. They were given a handful of flour. They mixed it with water and drank it, and then they immediately got diarrhea. The things we saw. People were dying everywhere. They were killing each other. On the island there was a guard named Kostya Venikov, a young fellow. He fell in love with a girl who had been sent there and was courting her. He protected her. One day he had to be away for a while, and he told one of his comrades, "Take care of her." But with all the people there, the comrade couldn't do much really. People caught the girl, tied her to a poplar tree, cut off her breasts, her muscles, everything they could eat. Everything. They were hungry. They had to eat. When Kostya came back, she was still alive. He tried to save her, but she had lost too much blood. The Pentagon Papers. They were fairly creepy back when they came out. The Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis in the African American community. How the government made it illegal to expose the government for the illegal things they have done. Operation Unthinkable, the plan for the UK and US to launch a surprise attack against the USSR at the end of World War II. Operation Mockingbird, it was an operation to manipulate the media for propaganda purposes, but they ended it a long time ago, honest. The WikiLeaks documents about Prism and about the smart device hacking methods, along with how to set said devices into a false off mode. The NSA and catalog. It contains a list of capabilities which the NSA and other national security administrations have been in possession of and use for the purpose of cyber surveillance. The document was created in 2008 and was made public in 2013. The technology in this document is incredible and terrifying for the idea of privacy. If you think they don't know everything, they do. These devices are everywhere. Could be in any cable, any computer, any phone, anything. How America almost nuked itself in the 60s, but the bombs didn't go off. Lucky you. East Coast. Lucky you. Surprised I'm the first to mention this, but Nixon's planned speech in case Apollo 11 failed is maybe not serial levels of creepy, but still pretty creepy. Project Acoustic Kitty was pretty weird and creepy if you think about how things would be if they were successful. Basically, the CIA wanted to put microphones and transmitters inside of cats and use them to spy on the Soviets in the 1960s. It cost about $20 million and was a huge failure, but the thought of my own pet being used to spy on me is pretty unsettling. COINTELPRO. Basically the FBI's attempt to infiltrate and disrupt any political organization they deemed dangerous to society in the mid-20th century. They targeted MLK, the Civil Rights Movement, the Black Power Movement, the Socialist Party, Communist Party, Ku Klux Klan, Vietnam protesters, etc. It's also pretty common knowledge that the FBI murdered several key leaders of the Black Power and Civil Rights Movement during this time. It may or may not be documented, but is still creepy knowing this. Back during the Cuban Missile Crisis, a US Navy ship was sending depth charges towards a hidden Soviet submarine. The men in the submarine thought war had broken out, and a vote was held whether or not they should take down the ship with a nuclear torpedo. 2 captains need to approve in order for the attack to happen. Both captains had approved, but a third man, Vasily Arkhipov, was given a vote as well. He voted no on the attack. Since the vote had to be unanimous, the attack was off the table. Creepy as duck when you realize how much power men have to be able to destroy the world. In late 2017, cables between the US Embassy in Jakarta and the State Department were declassified that casually tracked the massacres of the PKI that took place in Indonesia between 1965 and 1966. Other declassified documents also reveal that a US Embassy employee gave a list of suspected communists to the Indonesian army, and all 5,000 people on the list were rounded up and killed, with many tortured. In the end, between 500k and 3 million people were executed. The casual indifference to political genocide expressed by US government employees is chilling. Edit. Spelling. Edit 2. Word change for clarification. Edit 3. I was off by a couple months. How about the Filmarillion? There was this user on 4chan called UTV who frequented the sports page and made lots of posts. Just normal posts too. Nothing controversial. Anyway, he had a stalker known as the Archiver who would follow and comment every single post of UTV. After a while UTV would get sick of these comments and he'd tell him to get lost. But the Archiver would just respond to them too. Eventually he started posting his own compilations of the interactions he had with UTV all over the sports page. His final post was him confessing that the people in his life found out about his obsession and he is now being monitored. But before he goes offline he wanted to share his Filmarillion, a 92-page document of everything he had ever made to do with UTV, and he requested that it be for UTV's eyes only. Of course that didn't stop people from opening it. Inside were post compilations of UTV's posts, posts superimposed onto 3D models, extensive poems and sonnets, a detailed description of how their life together would be, and how UTV's funeral would pan out. I'm pretty sure there were real life details about UTV in there as well. Upon release of the document, UTV's only response was and he contacted the police and went into hiding. Yes, the CIA has a heart attack gun. Wait till everything releases about MLK in 2027. Both his legacy and the government are going to take a hit. Not sure if it's actually creepy but there are those bizarre, can't remember which, documents about Hitler fleeing to South America, complete with a picture of someone who looks like him taken in Argentina, I believe dated to be 1954. The speech prepared for Nixon if the moon landing had failed. Going from memory here, but I remember something along the lines of the men who landed on the moon tonight will stay on the moon to rest in peace. Gave me all the chills. The Tuskegee study comes to mind. The study, which ran from 1932 to 1972 by the US Public Health Services, infected poor African Americans with syphilis to see how the disease naturally evolves. Those who took part in the study thought they were receiving free medical care. Get this, none of those who were infected were treated with penicillin despite its known effectiveness. The study stopped when a government employee blew the whistle. Left square bracket. Not sure if this has been mentioned or not. I'm not scrolling through a million replies. The site is run by a guy named John Greenwald. Black Vault. Started putting in FOIA requests when he was 15 and never stopped. Currently has what is arguably the largest privately owned collection of declassified information from the US government anywhere. And the entire archive is accessible for free. Not a direct answer to your question, but anything you want to know about stuff the US government was up to can be found buried in there. And he's taken the time to sort some of the more interesting stuff out to make browsing easier. Cheers. The Toy Box Killer transcripts. If you absolutely want to have your day ruined, this has to be one of the most disturbing, creepiest things ever. Serial killer David Parker Ray would play these tapes for his victims, so they had an idea of what was coming and to also mentally break them. Hear the start of one tape to give you an idea. Hello there, itch. Are you comfortable right now? I doubt it. Wrists and ankles chained. Gagged. Probably blindfolded. You are disoriented and scared. 2. I would imagine. Perfectly normal. Under the circumstances. For a little while, at least. You need to get your it together and listen to this tape. It is very relevant to your situation. I'm going to tell you, in detail, why you have been kidnapped, what's going to happen to you and how long you'll be here. I don't know the details of your capture, because this tape is being created the 23rd of July, 1993 as a general advisory tape for future female captives. Mars exploration. The Russian tsunami nuclear torpedo. They are still building them today. The creepiest fact is that even the most horrible declassified files are just a small part of the documents that came to light. Too many facts went down the drain. My university has exchanged letters with Hitler about how they agree with Hitler about the use of eugenics. I believe the letters are in some of the archives in one of our libraries. There is a famous alien sighting history in a city called Varginha here in Brazil, and the city is mostly known for that particular incident in 1996. A couple of years ago, Brazil's National Archive made public documents that state UFO sightings from civilians and military that dates 25 years before the incident. There was a declassified Soviet program where the military tried to use rabbits to psychically communicate between submarines. It was based on the premise that a mother rabbit reacts strongly when one of its offspring is killed violently, even if the mother rabbit is miles or hundreds of miles away. The program involved keeping the mother rabbits at a land-based station and killing the baby rabbits in the submarine. Message content was determined by the frequency and the strength of the reaction from the mother rabbit, which was supposedly dependent on the violence of the death. The documents were declassified a while ago, but only translated in 2016. Operation Northwoods. America wanted a better shot at destroying Cuba, especially after the Cuban Missile Crisis. Bay of Pigs invasion was terrible, so the plan? Fake a terrorist attack planned and carried out by CIA operatives and frame Cuban citizens' government agencies. Then America will be bound to support the destruction of Cuba. JFK vetoed this suggestion. He then tried to disassemble the CIA and fired the director. JFK was then killed and the fired CIA director went back to his job and took the lead on JFK's assassination. There are profound similarities with 9/11. The government didn't like certain Middle Eastern countries. Wanted to go to war. The public didn't. Terrorist attack happens. America goes to war. Frightening. There are documents from the CIA detailing experimentation with telekinesis and moving objects through a solid glass.